This is a very brilliant seduction technique.
Some of the greatest seducers, male and female, were not good looking at all.
A seduction is like a story that you're telling. Seduction involves a little bit of mystery, a little bit of fantasy. Even if they dislike you, that's okay, because that can be overcome.
This is the other thing about seduction that you need to understand. But there's one path that is the most powerful of all. That is,
when a man's trying to seduce a woman, there's a wariness. Women have much more to lose in a seduction than the man, right? Men, they'll sleep with anybody practically, right? We all know that. A woman has much more to lose in that process. So women are wary, right? And so you have to overcome their wariness. You have to create some trust. And if you're an honest seducer, you're creating honest trust. But if you're a dishonest seducer, you're creating a false sense of trust. And one of the strategies that I talk about is you become their friend. And when you're their friend, and this is a longer seduction, this will take several months because you can't do it in a couple of days. When you become their friend, you don't seem so threatening. The trust element comes into play, right? You see them as someone who genuinely likes, for a man who wants to be their friend. Well, on one hand, it might be insulting that he doesn't see me as attractive, but on the other hand, he wants to be my friend, and it's very kind of flattering. Well, you get that friendship going, and then you inject something else. You start bringing in some of that sexual element, some of that erotic element. And the trust element that has been established makes it very difficult she becomes very confused. And because she's been emotionally connected as a friend, it's like a bridge to creating a connection sexually. So starting off by lowering their wariness of you, their suspicion, by trying to be their friend means, he's not just interested in sex, but he might be just interested in sex, but he's using this tactic to kind of lower your suspicions about him. The person is a puzzle. And the problem today, and people are so obvious, they're so goddamn obvious. They're on the internet, they're saying, here's what I have for breakfast, here's what I love. I'm just opening myself up, and this is who I am. But seduction involves a little bit of mystery, a little bit of fantasy. It's not like everyday life. It's not like things on Instagram. It's something different. It's theater. That's what's exciting about it, okay? So if you're a male seducer, he will be someone who seems very trustworthy, very honest, very solid. He got an MBA. He's working for Goldman Sachs. But then he reveals something a little bit rock and roll, a little bit rebellious, a little bit like he takes something else about him that doesn't quite click. Wow, I didn't know who this guy is. Maybe he's more interesting than I thought. Maybe he's not so buttoned up and so controlled as I thought. There's another aspect to him. The element of surprise that you don't know who someone is what fascinates us about a movie. When you create a character and suddenly on screen they reveal a trait that seems out of character. Wow, that's exciting. That's what makes you, that's how movies work, right? It's the same thing in real life. You create a sense of, you don't know who I am, but it has to be subtle. It's not like you're not Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You're not half evil and half button-down banker. You're 95% banker and you're 2 or 3 or 4% of this other thing. It's a little peak of something else that intrigues, that creates a fantasy element, okay? So a seduction is like a story that you're telling, right? So what interests us about a story is, I don't know what's going to happen next. Therefore, I've got to turn the page. I'm watching this movie. I don't know what's going to happen to this character. All right, I'm going to keep watching it, right? So a seduction operates on that same dynamic. The person doesn't know where you're going to take them on the next date. They don't know maybe how you're going to appear, what you're going to wear, but the surprises are positive. They're interesting. They're exciting. There's gifts involved. There's places you're taking them to, but it's not predictable. It's unfamiliar. It's theater. Because, let's face it, for most of us, our day-to-day lives are rather banal and rather boring. For men in the 18th century, they were going on ships, they were crossing the ocean, they were killing people with swords, they were battling, they're going off to war. It was adventure, it was excitement. Now they're sitting in cubicles and they're typing all day. We're leading these boring, banal lives. Everything is familiar, everything is predictable. A seduction is you're taking somebody out of that world and you're taking them into something different, heightened, more dramatic, more interesting, more theatrical. So that means you're creating surprises. And so when I'm telling men how to seduce, I say that you have to kind of create these little moments where the woman is caught off guard. She doesn't know where you're taking them, what the next step is. There can be sometimes slightly negative things where it might be, that wasn't good. And then you immediately catch it up with something good, kind of a roller coaster ride. It's the classic coquette strategy where you're kind of going hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. Maybe the hot is 70% and the cold is 30%. But when you're cold, they're like, oh my God, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Because the first thing that you do is, what did I do that was wrong that made them kind of withdraw from me? Then the next moment they're smiling, they're taking you somewhere else. Oh, relief. Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, it's okay now. That's how you get involved on that kind of emotional roller coaster, and they kind of hook you that way. Because the whole game, besides getting the other person to think about you when you're not there, is to get them emotional about you. Even if they dislike you, that's okay, because that can be overcome. What you cannot overcome is indifference. So getting them to be upset, which is the whole thing about that wound, getting them to be suspicious, angry, that gives you room to turn around to seduce them because they're emotional. They're getting emotional in your presence. That emotion in your presence can now be turned into something else.
Some of the greatest seducers, male and female, were not good looking at all. It's about psychology and it's about how you carry yourself.
Men are very much seduced by women who are offering an adventure because they like the thrill of the hunt. They like to chase. They like anything that has a little bit of danger involved, okay? So what you're offering is something that people don't normally get in their day-to-day life. If you're a man or a woman and you know how to give people a taste of that pleasure and get them eating out of your hand and running after you, you are a master seducer or seductress. That is the art. It is knowing people's weakness and need to be taken out of their boring day-to-day life and playing on that to seduce them, to make them fall in love. I mean, there are many different ways to get there, but there's one path that is the most powerful of all. And that is to be more interested in other people. So what makes you unseductive, what I call anti-seductive, is that you're so self-absorbed. You're only thinking about yourself. You're insecure. You're worried about what people think about you. You're constantly going, am I saying the right things to this woman in the bar? Is she bored? You're so wrapped up in your own thoughts that you're not paying attention. The ability to get outside of yourself, and you can practice this. The problem nowadays is everything is virtual. You're swiping to find somebody. You need to practice this on people in the world and not virtually, okay? And the practice is this, thinking about them. So if I were interested in you, Francesca, right now, just as a scenario, right? And I was trying to seduce you, okay? And we were in a restaurant or a bar, I'd be focusing on who you are, what your world is like. I would be asking questions that aren't obvious, but that show that I'm interested in your world, how you think, what's going on with you, what was your childhood like? I get you to talk about yourself. People never feel like they're the star of the show. They never feel like they get to talk about themselves. You get the other person to talk because you're focused on them. You're not focused on yourself, right? I'm interested in you. I'm interested in what makes Francesca tick. What were her horrible experiences with boyfriends in the past, and why? I'm I'm trying to get inside of your world and think like you think, so I can understand what it is that you're missing in life. Okay? What makes people bad at the game is they can't get inside of other people. They're so locked in their heads. They're so can only think about what they need, what they want, what they think is funny, or what they think is interesting. But you have to think of what the other person finds interesting. I have this famous quote that I'm going to mangle terribly in The Art of Seduction, where in England in the 19th century, there were these two political rivals, Benjamin Disraeli, who was a great prime minister, and this other man, Gold something or other. And Disraeli was the master seducer, and this woman, when she said, sitting next to Mr. Goldsmith, whatever his name was, I thought he was the most interesting man in the world. Sitting next to Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the most interesting person in the world. That is what charm, that is what seduction is. So you're not trying to impress people with how brilliant you are. You're trying to make them feel brilliant. You're trying to make them feel wonderful and great, not you. Get out of yourself, get out of your world, get out of your own problems, and get inside other people, inside their minds. Ask questions. This is a very brilliant seduction technique. When somebody says something that seems kind of interesting or telling, the next day or later that evening, you come back to them and you quote what they were saying in some context. What this reveals is that you were listening to them, that you retained something that they said that was very personal, and you've quoted it back to them, not in an obvious way, but it reveals indirectly that you were truly listening to them. Man, that is powerful because people don't listen to each other anymore. Well, one quality is moralizing and judging, and always judging other people and judging them for what they said and judging them for what they look and judging from the clothes that they wear and judging them for their friends and their political opinions. That is completely unseductive. Being moralizing and superior, that will put anybody off, okay? Being so insecure that you're always worried about what you're going to say and whether you're pleasing people, we can read that kind of insecurity on people. It's very anti-seductive, insecurity. The lack of generosity. So if you're a man, but pay the money, pick up the bill. Don't be tight. Don't be such a tightwad. Don't be having always to split the bill. Pay for things. Give generous gifts. But not just material things. Be generous with your attention, right? So you're somebody that's always involved in your business and your work, and you have no time for your partner or the person you're trying to seduce. Do the opposite and be generous with the time that you give them. The woman, for instance, if it's a man or woman, the woman knows that you're very busy. But if suddenly you take off a complete day and you say, let's just go off and do our things and let's just be together for that whole day, that's powerful. You're being generous with your spirit. You're being generous with your time. Lack of that is a very anti-seductive quality. On the subject of gifts are a very important topic in the art of seduction. And what you must understand is the power of a gift isn't necessarily in the money that you've spent on it. It's in the thoughtfulness of it. And the thoughtfulness is you're giving them something that appeals to them as an individual. This is the other thing about seduction that you need to understand.